Hello and welcome. This week we're going to talk about the muscular system. Wait, I have to warm up before we talk about the muscles. It's not my fault. I inherited my father's sense of humor. Okay, so last week we talked about the skeletal system, all your bones, right? And now we're going to talk about the muscles, and that includes muscles and tendons and ligaments. And the fact remains that without these, not only could you not have the motion and the ability that you have in function of the human body, but basically we'd just be like those skeletons at Halloween because bones cannot, they're just linked up, but they can't function. You can't do this just with the bones in your hands. You need the muscles to contract and release. So there are over 650 bones. No, wrong subject. There are there are only 206 bones in the adult human body. You remember that from last week. Of course you do. So now we have 640 plus muscles. There are 640 named muscles, and then there are a whole bunch more. Okay. And you can see from this illustration on the screen, and this is just the front. Okay. You can see from this how many muscles it takes to have all of these pieces parts work, getting all of the bones to function the way we want, as well as protect organs and do things like contract and release for your heart to function, right? And we talked about that is, your heart beating, which is it, thank gosh, it happens by itself autonomously, right? But your heart needs muscles and nerves in order to do its job. So this is the ultimate in team building, right? And one member of the team stops working so well or at all, that's when you got problems. All right. So first thing I want you to know about the muscular system is there are different types of muscles, and each type of muscle has its own purpose, its own function. Okay. So the skeletal muscles, just like this enables movement. Okay. These are the muscles that are directly attached to the bones, to the skeletal system, to allow function of the skeletal body. In addition, facial expressions, you can't smile without muscles. You can't frown without muscles. You can't blink your eyes without muscles. You can't breathe without muscles. Okay. Those would be the skeletal muscles. Then remember, I just talked about the cardiac muscles, the third bullet, which is what helps your heart function. Squeeze to push the blood out, release to allow blood to come in, right? And then you have your smooth muscles. These are the prettier muscles within your body because they're smooth. Okay. Now, these are the involuntary muscles that you have within the walls of the blood vessels and the viscera. The viscera are the organs within your torso, and particularly in the abdominal cavity. And again, you didn't even know you had muscles in your blood vessels, did you? Did you? Oh, look, we got a couple of A students there. Okay, so and why? Because they also have to contribute to pushing the blood through the cardiovascular system to get blood to every little cell in the extremities throughout the body, because remember, the blood is carrying oxygen, which is food. okay? And then the blood will also carry the waste. But think about if you put water in a straw, okay? You put the water in the straw, that's the heart pushing the muscle into a blood vessel, okay? An artery, of course, right? And then it's just going to stand there. But now if you squeeze the straw, the water will continue to move through the straw or move out of the straw. Okay? So those are muscles that are doing that work. Very, very important. Okay. Now, one of the things that's so complex about the muscular system is, so we just talked about types of muscles, skeletal, smooth, cardiac. Now we also have muscles in groups. So muscles are known for their size. It could be their width, their length, their the way that they're positioned, okay? But basically size matters with these muscles. Don't go there. Okay, and shape, because you might you might think of a muscle as sinewy, right? Like a long strip of muscle, but not all muscles are like that. Your deltoid muscle is triangular. Your rhomboid muscle, equal and parallel sides. Remember, you learned that in 5th grade math. Okay, latimus are very wide muscles. Teres are round. Trapezius, like a trapezoid, a 4-sided figure with 2 sides parallel, right? What's going on? Who did this? Who created our muscular system? A math teacher? No, but isn't that interesting how nature understands math? Nature is math, okay? This was all done in the creation. All right. The direction of the fibers of the muscle are also important. Straight, rectus, transverse. Do you remember we talked about transverse going across? Don't you like it when medical terms are used to mean the same thing in different ways? This should reinforce you learning these terms. Oblique is diagonally. Okay, and then the location of the muscle. Do you ever hear somebody who's in the gym or working out and they say, I've got to pick up my pecs? Okay. Pecs is short for pectoralis, which are your chest muscles, right? Then you have gluteus, which is your buttocks muscles. Gluteus maximus is one of the largest muscles in the human body. One of the largest, but not the largest. Is it the largest? It is the largest, no matter who you are, even if you think you don't have a butt. Okay, gluteus maximus is the largest muscle in the human body. Brachii in your arm. Supra means above, infra means below, sub means under or beneath, laterus means on the side. So some of these words and prefixes should start to sound familiar to you. We should start building this. So building this on what you learned in math class, building this on what you've already learned in the first month of this class, it all should start to fit together. And that's what you want at this point. You want to become familiar with these terms so you can figure out what they mean. Okay. All right. More muscle groups. Okay, the number of origins, and we have origin is where the muscle starts, and insertion is the other end. Okay, so number of origins, we have biceps, right? You've heard of biceps, right? Biceps, 2 heads. Triceps, 3 heads. Quadriceps, Oh, you ever do squats? Yeah, you feel your quads. That's your quads. Quadriceps. Okay. You see how terms that you may hear in other situations, in non-health care situations, should be reinforcing what you're learning in this class. Okay. So go out and hang out at the gym to learn more about your muscles. Or read your textbook or watch videos, whatever. I'm not much of a gym person. Okay, origin and insertion. So we have the sternocleidomastoidus. Okay, so the origin is on the sternum and the clavicle. Remember, the sternum is this bone right down the center, right here, and the clavicle is that long bone that goes from the center of your chest, from the sternum to your shoulder, right? You know this. Okay. And then where's your mastoid? Right here, your jaw. There's a muscle that comes right up here. Okay. And that's how we know what it is because it doesn't have a fancy schmancy name. It's simply a name that is telling you where this muscle starts and where it goes to. Okay. Brachioradialis, the origin is in the brachium, okay? That's here in the upper arm. And the insertion is the radius, which is part of your lower arm. Oh, that's good. So you could do this. Oh, it's hot. It's warm in here. Okay. All right. And then we have names and groups that are identified by their action. Okay. So abductor, abductor, adductor, flexor, extendor, levator. Oh, levator. Isn't that the name of a Marvel comic character? Now it's also the name of a muscle. And the masseter. Okay. The fact is when you look at this picture, I want to go back here for a second, okay? Is when you look at this picture, and again, this is just the front of the body. You got some more on the back of the body, and as well as within the body, right? We talked about that, the muscles that are part of the heart muscle, and the little teeny tiny muscles that are part of the structure of the arteries and the veins, not to mention your abs, which you're probably all very familiar with, whether you have them or not. That's six-pack, right? Okay. And you can see here in the very center, the rectus abdominis. Okay. That's your abs. The point is that not only do they all have cool names written in Latin and Greek to make it more difficult for you to remember the names. That's just a fact, okay? But each one of these more than 640 muscles have a very specific job. And think of muscles like rubber bands, which is why your doctor is constantly telling you to exercise. But the fact is that if you do not keep them stretching and reducing and stretching, they will lose their functionality, just like a rubber band. Whoops. Okay. So I thought it would be cool. You know how I always like to share with you some cool little details. And besides the fact that only 640 of the muscles in the human body are individually named, which means there are some that are nameless. Don't you feel bad for them? It's okay. All right. The longest muscle in the human body, longest muscle, is the sartorius muscle, the thigh muscle. And remember, we talked last week about the femur, the bone of the thigh, being the longest bone in the human body. So that kind of makes sense, right? Sartorius muscle. And generally, the average person has a 12-inch long thigh muscle. Okay. But you know what I think is incredible is every human being has the same number of muscles and the same number of bones, but yet there's such a dramatic difference. I mean, if you look at Shaq, okay, and you think about the size of his thigh bone, and you take a look at my thigh bone, there's going to be a real big difference between them. But they still have the same shape, they still have the same function, and so does the sartorius muscle that is protecting that femur and helping it function. And I'm going to do a good favor to you and not show you how. Wait, no, I'm not going to show you because that could be misconstrued. Okay, so the longest muscle in the human body is your thigh, right there, along with your longest bone. And then you have your smallest muscle. And remember, last week we talked about the smallest bone in the human body is in the middle ear. Well, the stapes muscle. So how logical is that? The smallest bone in the human body has the smallest muscle in the human body. Could you imagine how little that's got to be? Remember, I told you the story about the person who jumped off the Empire State Building and landed and broke all but the 3 bones in their middle ear. Okay, so now each one of those has a muscle. Isn't that incredible? Your busiest. Oh, by the way, that stapes muscle is 1 millimeter, 1 millimeter, 1 millimeter in length, and it's there to stabilize those little tiny bones. Okay, the busiest muscles in the human body, which you might think are my hands when I'm talking, or maybe these muscles in my face for my talking, but they're not. It's the eye muscles. Your eye muscles move more than 100,000 times a day. Think about it. Okay, isn't that something? Boy, you know, the optical system of the human body is really incredible. It's complex, and the muscles enable you to look to the left, look to the right, look up, look down, look straight ahead. Okay. Very, very important. Goosebumps. Did you ever get goosebumps? There's another name. Some people call them goose pimples. Okay. I prefer bumps. Okay. Goosebump muscles. They really are muscles. Did you know that? They're teeny tiny muscles in the hair root. Now, you remember when we went over the integumentary system and we looked at the root of the hair in the skin? Remember that? Okay. Well, there are tiny little muscles in that hair root. Isn't that amazing? Mm-hmm. All right. And overall, there are 30 facial muscles. 30 muscles just right here that are used to help you show how happy you are. How great! Isn't that fantastic? And smiling requires only 17 facial muscles. Okay. Whereas frowning requires 42 facial muscles to frown. So if you're worried about wrinkles in your face, you should be smiling a lot more than you are frowning. Very, very important for you to be able to keep people who are looking at you, to give them the opportunity to understand how you're feeling And isn't it amazing that these muscles that are helping your face, remember the skeletal portion of your head, function, can also connect others with your emotional side. Isn't that incredible? You see how the bottom line remains that the human body is nothing but an incredible network of teams working together to accomplish certain functions. Okay? Isn't that cool? I love that. 17 facial muscles to do this. Okay. And I'm going to be happy if you go to work for an orthopedist, but that you don't have to be the patient of an orthopedist because that hurts. Okay. So, orthopedics is the medical specialty that is concerned with the treatment of the musculoskeletal system. So, the combination of bones and muscles. Now, most orthopedists, orthopediologists, that's not right, orthopedists focus on the spine, joints, so like you have people with arthritis, okay, as well as the muscles. And of course, you know, you have all those muscles working in conjunction with your spine to enable you to do this and this and this and this and this, okay? So, of course, a lot of people have back problems. You may know somebody who has a back problem, and therefore they would go to an orthopedist to hopefully provide some relief from any pain. They focus on the correction of disorders and deformities related to the musculoskeletal system. And that is pretty typical. In the way things work in healthcare, you would see a primary care physician for the overall care and well-being of all the pieces parts of your body. But if something goes awry, something is not working, if you have pain or any kind of malfunction, that is when you would take the opportunity to seek out a specialist. Does that make sense? Okay. Use your 17 smile muscles. All right, everybody, what I tell you every week, and I can't mean this more, you got to review. Make sure you use your medical dictionary so that you are implanting the correct word with the correct definition into your head. And the fifth or sixth time you look up the same word, it's going to be implanted. All right, maybe some of you need 7, others of you need 3, and then you're going to have the combination of what you're hearing out in the world. Maybe it's where you work. Maybe you like to watch Chicago Med, okay, which is a good idea. Well, you have Chicago Med, you have The Resident, you have Amsterdam, right? You got lots to choose from on television, all right? And when you are doing that, in addition to relaxing and enjoying yourself, I want you to pay attention to the medical terms. Let this reinforce, figure out what are they talking about from the context of the show. And sometimes you might even find that they use something improperly. Because, you know, they're not perfect anyway. All right. So, but it's a good way to mix entertainment and relaxation with learning and reinforcing. And I am always surprised at how much I actually learn from television. No. I actually have I have real schooling and education. I know what I'm talking about. I just like to add that in to the mix. Okay. All right. So you have a question, you're not sure about something, you want to just kind of talk it through, email me. And then we can email back and forth, which I like because then I can explain things and you can print it out and use it in your study material. But we could set up an appointment to talk on the phone. We can set up an appointment to do a one-on-one Zoom, FaceTime, whatever works for you. Okay. I am your coach. I am here to support your learning. And that is why I'm here, to support your learning. Because at some point, I'm going to be old and decrepit, and I'm going to need you, the healthcare professionals of the future, to take care of me. Okay? That's not so hard. All right. Any questions? Thank you for joining me today. Have a wonderful rest of the week, and I'm here when you need me.